The structure here is I'll ask a few questions, the panel will answer. If you have questions, I'll kind of give you an indication. You'll see when I'll raise my hand and look around and see if there are questions for everybody. The first question of the panel is, what's going on in venture capital right now? And let's start with Jonathan.
Okay.
Because you're valuable, you have a lot to say.
Okay, thank you. What's going on in venture capital? I'll talk about just a couple of themes that we're seeing, and I'm happy to get into a discussion about them. The first one is very much around, I guess, a combination of two things. One, data. There's more and more data about everything we do, and there are technologies that are easy and cheap today to store that data. So we can, as individuals, you can track people, you can track thousands, millions of people, you can store that data, you can store, across your actions, especially to the extent that those actions are online, every single thing that you do can be stored. And then what's happening today in the technology era is people are taking all of that data, they're throwing it in, and then what they're doing is they're running the same type of technologies that would be used to, that would be used in military technologies to try and find indications that the enemy are about to attack. So they're just looking for signals in that data, and when they get signals in that data can be used. So to translate that into practical applications, a lot of money is focused on marketing today. And the idea being that if I take a ton of data, I can look at that data and I can work out, wait, someone that visits this site on this day and then goes to this site and then to that site, that's someone that possibly is about to buy a car. And often it's not a logical progression of, oh, they went to a car website, but there are progressions there that you can't see. So there's a lot of money going into advertising, and the aim of those technologies are essentially to create a conversation of one. Where essentially a marketing company aren't talking to you. What used to happen in marketing was very much you segment the population into groups, and then you talk to a group. So you talk to all the people in a certain demographic, a certain wealth, a certain area. Today the idea is that I can take that data and I can have, to some extent, a one-on-one conversation with someone based on what they're doing. So we're seeing a lot of technology go in that direction, and you're seeing that because the systems can get closed, you can then be incentivized. So the people marketing to you have the ability today to talk to you on a one-to-one basis that they maybe didn't 10 years ago, where essentially it was just broadcast, right? I put an ad on television, I put an ad on the radio, I put an ad in the newspaper. Today I can talk to you in ways that maybe people don't even really realize they're being spoken to. So there are companies that are looking at your credit card bill, and then they are offering you a coupon based on that bill. So they're saying, here, I got someone anonymous, I got someone with this purchase history, who wants to buy the right to sell that person, to put an ad on that person's website, on my website, to put an ad on the statement, and it's totally individualized. So people can bid on as small as really one person, and you can get real efficiency and optimization in that pricing. So we're seeing, anyway, so that was a long description for essentially you're seeing a lot of money going into online advertising and around the use of data in advertising. That's one space that's already happening, and it is to some extent quite mature. The second space where I think you'll begin to see a lot of investments is exactly the same idea, but in the medical field. So the idea that I can take I can take everyone's medical data, I can pull it all together, and then as I look at a wider population, I can see trends, and I can identify, maybe susceptibility to illness, susceptibility to disease. I can identify trends in behavior that is positive behavior, and I can reinforce that behavior. And just the idea that we can take that data that wasn't available today and make it very available, and then I can build applications on top of that for the consumer. Those are trends that I think you're seeing across all industries. We're talking a bit about Israel. The big Israeli win in the high-tech space was recently a company called Waze, which is GPS. And the GPS is different to the other GPSs. The reason that it's so interesting is essentially it pulls the data of all the different people in the community, and then it pulls that data, and using that data, it gives you an optimum route to travel. If you're ever stuck in traffic, less likely in Philly, but if you're ever stuck in traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike and you turn on Waze, they'll cut your journey by by about 20-30%. It's quite amazing. Israelis always don't want to ever be the slowest person anywhere, so it's very popular in Israel. But that's just an example of if I take everyone's data together, I can learn things, and then I can create value that I could never have achieved any other way. That's a big trend that we're seeing across industries.
David?
I'll give you a couple of examples of things that I think are pretty hot, meaning they are in demand by investors that have approached us looking for companies in that space, for example, or that otherwise we know that there's a lot of activity in that space, and in one area that has died down to some extent. But the two areas, in addition to what Johnny said, that I think are very hot right now are cybersecurity. A lot of companies a lot of investors are looking for cybersecurity companies. And the other area is energy management. Either in the form of grid controls, for example, energy savings by grid control technology or other technology that controls the way we save energy and the way we store energy. So batteries are very hot. People are looking for solutions on how to store energy efficiently. The area that I think has really slowed down a lot, where we're having a lot of trouble finding investors for our clients, is in defense and homeland security. Homeland security used to be kind of a hot topic. It's very much not so anymore.
What's happening with homeland security?
That's a problem. Not a lot is happening. A lot of the investors who 5 years ago were very much interested in homeland security have left the market. There are very few investors who are funding pure homeland security plays right now.
It would seem to be very bad.
Yeah, and cybersecurity may be very much an event-driven now. All the news about the
hopefully it will die out quickly.
Well, except that the problem is, I'm being told by clients in the defense field, and even not necessarily defense, but just government contractors, I'm being told that they experience an average of 30,000 cyber attacks a day from China, which is astounding. Now, obviously, if they know about them, they stop them. But the amount of attack that our companies are under from cyber attackers in China, in Russia, and in other places is unbelievably staggering.
Thank you. James?
You can use Jim. Yeah. So my perspective is a little bit different, and it's really from the entrepreneurial side. And having lived in Israel for the last 16 years, just a minute on the macro side of what's going on. You should know that this year to date, there have been about actually 20 VC deals that have closed that have a transaction value of about $4 billion, which is really in line with the previous 2 years, 2012, 2011. The peak year was, I guess, 2006, which I think we hit about $10 billion. But at that stage, you had a couple of, HP, but you had a couple of very large public companies. And as Jonathan mentioned, that the Waze, of course, this year was the big one, roughly $1 billion from Google making the purchase. So the market, from the Israeli perspective, is pretty robust. It's really going on in a few areas. And I'll go along with David that the probably number one is security, and we divide it, because we are involved in that space, in two different ways. Cybersecurity for sure. Say, fortunately, I have a son who's in a cyber warfare unit in Israel, and right now you know about as much as I do about what he does, because it's and literally, there's a tremendous amount going on, and that definitely is an area of growth. But there's also the physical side of security, which I think from the Israeli perspective still has room for growth. And we're actually committed to that market here in the United States. So I think there are opportunities, but you have to be much more selective. The other area which we combine sort of, I'll call it both energy and water, which is our core business. We see tremendous growth of ideas coming out of Israel, and the whole the issue of dealing with it in the VC side is how do they get translated into something that's practical to get to market. And it's true of U.S. companies also dealing with the VC market, how much you're giving up for what you're really getting. But from the Israeli perspective, I see no slowdown on the rate of good ideas. There's no shortage of that. The question is the market's capacity to be able to afford it. And that's...
Can I just add a point that I think is very interesting? There's a debate in Israel going on right now about infighting among army units, whereas before all the promising soldiers, upcoming soldiers, were being drafted to the elite commando units, warfare units, combat units, right? Now, a lot of them are being drafted into the cyber warfare units, and there's a big debate as to where the real resources ought to go. It's a phenomenon. It's a new phenomenon.
I mean, in my family is a great example because my he's almost 22, 21 is a tank commander, and he's actually now just last week started an officer's training course. But his younger brother, who's 20, was drafted directly into a cyber warfare unit. I mean, really, no choice. It's great. And the next one, who's a senior in high school, she actually has finished a whole series of stuff, also being considered for cyber warfare. That's what they're really looking for.
Boris?
Thank you. I would second my colleagues here, all my colleagues, by the way, all people here on the panel I do business with in different capacities. Cybersecurity is a big area and very well advanced in Israel technology sector. But we also see more and more of that coming into play in regular e-commerce settings. An unintended, maybe, but maybe sometimes intended, disruption of online commerce site can create literally a very negative impact. And now that we're approaching the holiday seasons all over the world and heightened activity, online purchases and things like that, it becomes a real prevalent issue. And again, I said the Israelis are very advanced in finding solution to a number of cybersecurity problems. The other area that we particularly focused on, and I might need to make a qualifier here because some trends in our business are something that smart investors try to avoid because we like to invest in next big thing. Not something that is already big enough that everybody follows. And unfortunately in our business more and more prevalent is the kind of herd mentality and approach of syndication and pretty much top large funds in this country as well as in Israel. I see it all the time. Follow the same deals and you can pretty much tell who is going to be in the next deal with them. We try to position ourselves to be kind of outside of the herd, and particularly we're able to do that in medical device area. Several years ago, I was looking for the next big thing out of Israel, and quickly realized that medical device area would be a long-term field for Israeli technologies to develop, because you have a large number of engineers, both coming from the former Soviet Union or trained domestically in Israel, coupled with extremely well-educated and advanced medical professionals. You put them together, and that can create absolutely outstanding, out-of-this-world medical devices, which pretty much follows the Jewish sages' prediction that people, and we see people, I have it in my own family, approaching age of 100 years, it's more and more common. And soon enough, people will live 120 years, 150 years, and a lot of it would depend on how advanced our medical technology, medical devices, the ones that we deal with, are designed specifically to address conditions that otherwise wouldn't be treated with drugs. And mind you, most of the treatments with drugs address symptoms, they're not addressing the cause of the problem. Medical devices, on the other hand, are designed to address the root of the problem and help the person overcome their deficiencies.
Okay, so you've heard a lot of different areas that people are focused on, and a lot of times that focus relates to what their firm has expertise in. What I want to ask each one of them to do is talk about a joint Philadelphia-Israel investment where there was work on both sides, and that was successful. So now I'll change it up a little bit. David, I'll start with you first. And
let me start by saying that unfortunately Philadelphia lags behind other areas in the United States in terms of dealing with Israel in a fairly significant way. So all of us here are trying to change that, but it's not an easy process. A lot of the deals that I've done involving Philadelphia and Israel have been kind of angel investor type deals that are private deals, so I don't know how much I can talk about them, but I'll give you an example of one company that I thought was a good example. There's a company called SafeN. SafeN was I guess it is, a IT security company. They prevent people from stealing data through flash drives. Okay, essentially. The company was established in Philadelphia. Got a lot of deals done with local people, both on the capital side and on the commercial side, and was the first Israeli company that was the first non-U.S. company that was allowed to present at the Mid-Atlantic Venture Fair, which is one of the largest venture fairs in the country. And eventually the company got sold to a larger company about a year and a half ago. So that's a good example of an Israeli firm did well in Philadelphia. I'm sure there are others.
their technology was Israel,
It was entirely an Israeli company.
and Philadelphia was the money side more than anything else?
Well, not necessarily. It was partial, but not. It was really the place where their U.S. operations were
Okay.
headquartered.
And so they operated out of here, they did their marketing
Yeah,
from
sales
here.
and marketing was based here.
Why did they choose Philadelphia?
I think that one of the reasons they chose it was because of the support that they got from people based in Philadelphia, like myself. And the one thing that I've experienced is that when foreign companies come, or Israeli companies in particular, come to Philadelphia for the first time, they are very surprised and pleased with what they see. Philadelphia is really outside of the radar typically, but our firm has organized an Israeli venture capital conference for the past 10 years, and so we've brought in somewhere between 12 and 20 Israeli companies each year. When those companies come and tour the area, they're all very excited about Philadelphia, but most of them had no idea what Philadelphia was before they came.
Jim?
I want to second, but maybe add another point about your comment about Philadelphia not being on the same level as a few other places in the States. And it's true that there is a lot of support here, a lot of good people, but it could use, I'll say, better organization, I think is the best way to put it. Because we certainly, when I think of one example I thought about doing, but it didn't make sense because we have our one medical device company that really got a lot of support in the Ohio, Cleveland, and Akron area, and they brought us there. And I would have much preferred to come to Philadelphia. There's a lot of great stuff in Philadelphia, but it's where the support was. But having said that, there are some success stories, and I guess the one that I'll mention is in our group, a company. The Israeli company is called Decant Treatment Systems, although actually it was again set up as a U.S. company for a few reasons. But then set up a U.S. distribution company called Electrocell that's focused its real efforts in this area. And what that company does, it developed a technology to treat, I'll call it waste effluent, meaning wastewater or even industrial waste, anything with liquid, a lot of liquids, but using nothing but electricity. And it found a way to treat many kinds of products, including wastewater, that is way ahead of its class in terms of getting results at a very nominal cost. And we found a group interested here called the Halloran Energy Group. They're based just outside of Philadelphia in Conshohocken. A fellow named Harry Halloran, who was very successful in the wind industry and is also in many things in energy. Who is willing to support it, and what early stage companies really need to get moving is they need either access to capital for sure, but also the ability to get to markets. And it's really that's where I think in Philadelphia we can help, and it certainly did with Electrocell. I mean, getting to particular markets, whether it be through wastewater treatment companies, engineering companies, municipalities, the whole gamut. And that's really, I think, the strength of Philadelphia is that we have, although it's certainly one of the major cities in the U.S., but when people come from Israel, and I also bring, people come in and out all the time, Israelis are comfortable here. They really are. So it's, I find that it's a great place to bring in. Hopefully, our goal is really to be setting up in the next 2 years at least 2 more companies here.
Boris?
I would very much second what was said about Philadelphia as a hidden treasure in the United States for possible location companies. I think we're suffering in Philadelphia investment community the same problem as the Israeli government in their dealings with the Arab-Israeli conflict. We're lacking PR, sophistication to actually tell people how good this region is. Andrew, David used to be for a number of years the president of Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce, and he's very close to the issue of promoting, and I would bluntly take advantage of this group here to actually highlight a point that right now we're facing an issue of Israeli government possibly threatening to close our general consulate here in Philadelphia. It's been around for years, for centuries. I don't know how long it's been around, but because of the budget cuts, and guess what? The trade-off is to channel that money to open another representative office in China, which is nice. It's good for Israel, maybe, but not at the expense of Philadelphia originally. So I would encourage all of you to go on the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce site. There are letters there already prepared for you to send to your representatives to The government of Israel, including the Prime Minister, he's from Philadelphia, so he went to school here. Bibi Netanyahu should be receptive to our plight, but it certainly would reduce the statue and the whole business atmosphere in Philadelphia area if the closure actually happens. So we can all contribute to prevent that from happening.
I want to get you back on topic.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Supposed to come up with a company.
Companies, yes, we do have certainly good examples, and one I would cite here because Alan Weber from Robin Hood Ventures is here, and they're our co-investors in this company. Molecular Detection is a company that originated in Jerusalem, no less, not only Israel, and that is a particular interesting for us point because, as you all know, Jerusalem has a lot of difficulty creating new ventures, creating enough business and jobs to support the economy of the city. So we have a company that is located still in Har Hatzvim and the high-tech park in heart of Jerusalem. Even though that some people say it might be a little bit beyond the green line, but I really haven't seen the green line there, so I can't come. In the same building with Teva, so I think it's still all right. And
What do they do?
they developed a very novel and breakthrough approach to detecting infectious diseases using DNA technology and multiplexing that is unparalleled in the market today. And to make matters simple, they address diagnostics of infections that can kill you and that resist to regular treatment with antibiotics, for example. But if you detect them early enough and precisely enough, you can actually help patients overcome it. One of such diagnosis is sepsis. That is, it's really a killer bug, but if you detect it, and currently anything in the market takes several days up to a week to get the results of diagnosis. Ours will do it in less than 3 hours initially, and 2 hours in a very short period of time. That is a tremendous breakthrough in that area.
So the technology is done in Israel. The
Technology
marketing
was originally developed in Israel. We invested in the company, made it de facto a global company. Now it has a business development office in the UK, and we're actually selling products in the European Union. It's a shorter path to regulatory approval there, and we've gotten it already. And in the States, we have executive offices and a number of relations right now with strategic partners, both in Europe and the United States. And that's the model that I was always advocating. It's not an easy thing to do, by no means. Moving companies from Israel, or even just establish, and we purposely wanted not to move and uproot the company from Israel. We wanted to keep the R&D and production. We employ more than 30 people in Jerusalem. A lot of them are with advanced degrees, PhDs and master's degrees, and we would like to continue that. So that's the line on the case force.
Okay. John.
So I can tell you a story about a company we invested in. So we invested in December last year. It was established by a guy called Eyal Gruner. So that he established the company when he was 13. He went with his mum to an ATM, and his mum's taking money out of her ATM at Bank Leumi, and he's like, why take money out of your account? We could take money out of other people's accounts. It's a much better thing to do. So he shows her how from the ATM she can choose, why don't we take money out of Mr. Cohen's account? She walked him into the bank manager. So as the bank manager, my son just showed me that I could take money out of Mr. Cohen's account. I don't think this is a good idea. So the bank manager calls, it was Bank Leumi, calls central office of Bank Leumi and says, and they say, oh, there's a bug in the software, we're going to fix it. And then about a month later, so they're going to fix it, and they go home, and then about a month later, he shows her that he can still take out money from anyone's account using the ATM. So this time she called the newspapers because she no longer trusted Bank Leumi to fix the problem. Bank Leumi wrote a big article about, hey, there's this boy, and he proved that anyone with an ATM card can take money out of any account. Bank Leumi at that stage decided that they should really hire him. They had an issue, and the issue was that he was too, according to labor laws, you can't hire a 13-year-old to come and work in your thing. So he set up a company. So he set up a company called BugSec, and that company essentially became he was called Hayeled, which means the boy, like kind of the boy wonder, and essentially they provided the cyber security services to all of the major banks in Israel, and slowly over time banks outside of Israel across Europe. And so he came to me, and originally he was doing consulting, but every time the banks would get attacked, he would sit there and say, okay, what product could I make to protect the banks? And over time he developed products and would sell them products. He came to me about a year ago, and the reason I asked him, why did you come to me to look for capital? And the reason was, I didn't remember this, but when he was 17, he came to me also to look for capital, and he said I didn't laugh him out of the office because he was so young. So anyway, I invested in this 23-year-old. We established here in Philadelphia. We hired a VP sales here in Philadelphia. It was someone that I happen to know. Someone out of RSA, and that I think is the side point. How do you get companies to come? It's all about people. Companies are people, and it's really about people always talk about how can you get companies to come. And I try and tell people companies don't come to a place. Wives decide where their husbands are going to be located, and that's where they end up there. And you ask a lot, or the other way, or husbands decide where their wives are going to be when they're relocated. But you ask a lot of entrepreneurs, why did you end up in New York? And it was like, I told my family we're moving to America, and they said, let's go to New York. And I was like, okay, I'm moving them all the way around the world, and they want to go to New York, or they want to go to the Valley, or wherever they want to go. That's a lot of the time. Sometimes it's industry specific. I need to be near the advertising industry, or I need to be near the technology industry. But if it isn't industry specific, then it's really about just reaching out to those companies at that stage and saying, hey, Philadelphia's a great place to live, a great place to relocate to. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, we established an office here. We hired 3 people here, and they worked here. And then about a month, and so we started selling products, and we sold to Citigroup, and we sold to other banks. And then a month ago, F5, which is a big public company, bought our company for $100 million. So we've already finished with that one, and now we're looking for more. But there you go. That's a Philadelphia success story with some Israeli technology.
Your employer, which is to some extent you and Amir, basically have decided that you're really going to focus in on connecting Philadelphia and in Israel.
Right.
Did you guys see a niche there, or yes, to a large extent it's because you and your spouse decided you want to live in Israel, but is there anything particular about the two cultures that helps make it easy to make deals between Philadelphia and Israel, or is it just a matter of happenstance and that you want to be there?
So I moved to set up a Susquehanna office in Israel about 3 months ago. We did over the last 5-6 years, we did 5 Israeli deals. So we invested about $40-50 million into Israeli companies. And we made a lot of money doing that, is the bottom line. And so that always helps with the business case for, why doesn't John move back to Israel? That helps if everyone's made money by investing in Israel. But I don't think there's anything specific about Philadelphia. I think it's a great place to relocate to. I think it's a great city. We lived here for 6 years and we had a great time. There's just something about, and I forgot it when I was here and I realize it when I go back, someone gave me a statistic, 3 startup companies are established in Israel every single day. And when you just realize how small the place is, it's just like that, the volume of of just that. It's just the sheer volume that people don't finish university and think I'm going to go get a job. They finish halfway through university and think I'm going to start a company. And that's not even something that you can, it's not something you can teach, right? I think it's just something that's in the air. It's incredible. People don't think, where I grew up in the UK, people finish university and they think I'll get a job and I'll try and work for a big firm and get a secure salary, and that's kind of, that's the English mindset. And America's also got entrepreneurs, but Israel just in technology, they all leave with computing science. I think that today you want to prepare your kids for the future. Everyone should learn to program, everyone should understand computers. And so you got these people that all want to be entrepreneurs and all understand computers, and it's just this incredible mix. And we, in terms of the connection to Philadelphia, I think it's great for medical. I think this is a great place to set up a medical company. I think it's great for families, a great place to live. It's near New York if you're in financial space.
Okay.
I want to make two observations. One, just to complete Johnny's point on this. Israel is number 2 in the world in number of annual startups in absolute terms, not per capita. That's the astounding thing. If it was per capita, it would be on a factor of 10 times the number 2 country. But on absolute terms, that means that there are more startups in Israel being established every year than in the UK, France, Germany, China, India, second only to the United States. I think that the two primary reasons why that make Israeli companies choose a particular place in the United States are the following. One is the availability of money, and the other one is the herd mentality. Where are other Israeli companies established? And that has been Philadelphia's challenge. We lack in money against other places in a very significant fashion.
Compared to Boston.
Compared to Boston, compared to New York, compared to Silicon Valley for sure, compared to Atlanta, hey, compared to Akron. Really, I mean, it's embarrassing. That's number one. And number two, again, historically, Israeli companies went to Boston, went to Silicon Valley, went to New York, went to Atlanta, and that's where the herd mentality leads them. And so there's a combination of those two things. US Airways has a daily flight to Israel. It is, by the way, the most profitable line in all of US Airways.
Yes.
Which is amazing. When US Airways started talking about having a daily flight to Israel, a lot of people came to me and kind of laughed at it and says, that's ridiculous, right? It is the single most profitable line in all of US Airways. Having said that, it's a great thing, but it's still, people in Israel still don't view Philadelphia as a natural destination, even though it is an hour away from New York and half as expensive, 2 hours away from Washington and almost half as expensive. Daily flights, a great infrastructure, and it's still not in most people's radar screens.
Jim?
I don't know what Mayor Nutter really did in Israel. I'm a little bit involved with it, but I think a better use of that money, energy, would be in finding ways to just encourage people to get here, because there are a lot of resources here.
There's not a lot of money here.
No, the money is always a problem. It's everywhere. But today, I found that in the last 5 years, money is much more transitive. You can get money at a certain level to go from Boston to Philadelphia, from Washington to New York to Philadelphia for sure. That it was harder 10 or 15 years ago. But if you don't get people to come here, they're never going to even know about it. And it really isn't on the radar screen in Israel. It's amazing to me because it has a lot of advantage, but we don't publicize it. And I start with Mayor Nutter. I don't know who else to go to. we could do better.
Well, part of it is that the city itself is weak compared to the metropolitan area. So it does not dominate the metropolitan area the way Chicago dominates, the way even Boston dominates its metropolitan area. The city here is just almost a weak sister in the metropolitan area. And
How do you
that's,
feel when it was Rendell?
Rendell was a very visible individual, and so therefore was more noticeable. And but in general, there's a weakness here that our core is very
I
weak.
think the problem here is that people don't really, the community doesn't work together. You have federation who doesn't really talk to the chamber, who doesn't really, the chamber, there's not a sense of getting everybody together towards a common goal. There are a lot of internal politics. Akron is a good example of why do companies go to Akron? It's a helpful, frankly. How can you compare Akron to Philadelphia in any measure? And yet they go there because the community has decided that they're going to unite, and that's a priority, and they're going to raise money, and they're going to make resources available, and they're offering things that we cannot offer. New York doesn't have to offer it. People go to New York because it's New York, but Philadelphia has to offer it if it wants to compete with Akron. And actually, we've lost companies to Salt Lake City of all places, because people in Salt Lake City had, again, gotten together and decided that's a priority.
What is that, like Cherry Hill? I'm from Cherry Hill. I mean, it's very active federation. I mean, considering we're over the bridge,
Yeah, but Federation is doing
we have a strong
nothing
federation.
significant to entice Israeli companies to come to the United States. It's not a priority.
Yes.
Jonathan, I use Waze, and it's an amazing app. But how is Google going to monetize $1 billion? Because I use it, it sits in my car. I'm certainly not looking at it much because I'm supposed to be looking at the road and listening to the voice. So where are the ads? How do they expect to monetize a $1 billion purchase?
So they've in Israel they're monetizing it quite well, and the way they're doing it is if you wanna.
Your woman's voice goes, "Don't look at me, look at the road."
Right, no. This is a very classic Israeli way to monetize it. It tells you the cheapest gas on your route. So all of a sudden it gives you the real-time gas price in the different gas stations in the area.
Whether you ask for it or not.
You put in "I'm looking for gas," it'll tell you, and then it also gives you coupons based on where you are. So you drive whatever, and it'll tell you you're in an area, and it just flashes up 50% off at this restaurant. And if you're going to have dinner, someone's telling you it's 50% off. That's like a good incentive to, hey, I'll go try that restaurant. So I think that's how they're going to monetize it, and I think it's not difficult to imagine that at scale in the US. Like, there's a lot of money in if you can.
It's amazing.
Actually, I'll tell you a little anecdote. There is a Waze choice in Israel where you can have the voice that talks to you be the voice of a sergeant, a drill sergeant, who screams at you in kind of Oriental accent, of course in Hebrew, but like a Mizrahi accent, who literally screams at you, says, 10 push-ups and then look right. and it's just hysterically funny and very effective, because sometimes when they tell you don't know exactly, is it right this second or is it the next one? There, it's unequivocal.
Works. The only direction I've ever gotten to Israel was to sharks. That's all anybody knows.
So this, we were just laughing when we were having the cup.
Michael Adler?
Sure, thanks all for being here. My question to you all talked about all your success stories, but I'm wondering if there's one venture you've seen on in the past that for various reasons you passed on and you regret today.
LinkedIn, I was one of the first users of LinkedIn when it was not safe. And I can never imagine that it would go into such. I still believe that we're sort of in the midst of a bubble, next bubble of social networking and social media.
Twitter for 25 billion.
Yeah, it's just kind of a little scary. Those companies command tremendous valuations, but I've been wrong before. So yes, I do own shares of Facebook. I must admit it. I don't use it. I have a page for some reason that my 13-year-old, 15, he's not 15, on the Facebook all the time, and I want to see what he's doing. That's the only reason I am on the Facebook. But that might be a generational thing. That's,
I have a question, which is, what do you guys see as the next big thing, or next big company? We talked about, industries, but we haven't talked about, is there any company you guys have your eyes on that you think is gonna really, next year or 5 years down, is gonna be really hot?
I have something like that.
Sure. How big is your checkbook?
I give you a company I'm not invested in at all, so I'm unbiased, and it's one that I tried to invest in, but I got outbid, so I'm totally neutral here. But it's an Israeli company called Outbrain, which is actually Israeli based in New York. And when you read a newspaper article and you're seeing links at the bottom of the page saying you might like this article, right, and you get a list of 5 or 10 articles at the bottom, and then you find 20 minutes later, you find you're still clicking and go from article to article. So that's Israeli technology, and the technology is very, very smart. So it's really learned what you find interesting. It's personal again, and it puts you in a loop. It's incredibly addictive. Anyone that reads a lot online. It's an Israeli company. I think it'll go public next year. It'll be a very, very big win. They dominate the print, the internet kind of news sites. They're everywhere.
Art?
Is it possible for you to generalize at all about the relationship between Israel's entrepreneurial community and the Israeli government? Do they tend to view the government as intrusive or supportive, or just sort of in between and they stay out of the way?
I can answer that. Actually, it's a very good relationship. The venture capital community in Israel was really created as a result of a government initiative. And so there's always been a very symbiotic relationship. Recently, I was saying 3 years ago, the Israeli government realized that a lot of the Israeli venture funds invest in tech, but not in life sciences. And there is a need for life science investment in Israel. So they came up with a program where they would invest, I think, up to $40 million in a very subordinated role to encourage the formation of venture capital funds directed to the life science industry. And in fact, two funds have been funded so far, each in excess of $300 million. OrbiMed, which is the largest life science investor in the world, formed an Israeli OrbiMed life science venture fund as part of this program. And now you have $600, $700 million of venture capital targeted to the life sciences community. So it's actually a very good example of government at its best. I actually happened to stumble upon being invited to a dinner with 2 U.S. senators in Jerusalem one day. And I don't know why they picked me. One of the senators was a Pennsylvania senator, Senator Toomey. The other one was Senator Reach from Idaho, both of whom are very much, conservative senators. And they used the opportunity. It was a 11 people. Used the opportunity to talk about how governments are bad, and we brought up the fact that governments could be good if they do things right, and that was a good example of the government doing good things for an industry that paid back very handsome returns to the government.
So they tend to make their choices about investment based on merit as opposed to cronyism or who's greasing whose palms.
Be honest.
Yeah, look, I think the answer, as far as Israel is concerned, as far as I know, is yes.
thank you for sharing with us all of these wonderful, encouraging, positive developments about Israel. Are geopolitical developments a factor in investing? And if so, can you describe, are some venture capitalists skittish? And is that likely to change with Iran and things going on in Iran?
Let me just throw one example, really recent, with, you probably know that the company Iskar, which Warren Buffett bought a big controlling stake in a couple years ago. This year, recently, he bought the remaining stake. He spent another $1 billion to put into it, an Israeli company. And I haven't found, and certainly there are examples where people decided that they didn't want to come to Israel for that reason, but I think they're way outweighed by people who recognize that there's just so much talent and IP being developed there, it's just worth it.
Well, the purchase of Iskar was done really in the midst of the last Lebanon wars. And that was the first investment of Warren Buffett outside of the United States. And the story goes that Iskar, which is in the north, was being bombed during the Lebanon war. There were bombs falling on their parking lot. The owner of Iskar called Warren Buffett and told him, you should know that in spite of what you're reading in the newspapers, we are not losing a single order. And they just kept going throughout the war and like nothing. I happened to be in Israel during the Lebanon war, right in the middle of it. And I had my usual 30 meetings a week when I'm there, and not a single meeting got canceled. I mean, none. And the only difference you felt in Tel Aviv, which is not the north, in Tel Aviv, the only difference you felt was you saw the Apache helicopters passing by every 5 minutes, and the restaurants and the beaches were more crowded than usual because people from the north decided to go on vacation in Tel Aviv during the war.
Two questions, I guess. One is just the idea of Philadelphia not really being a cohesive community, and it's probably our biggest issue. I think there is certainly money here. It may not be going to the right places or being directed in the right places. And I'd like to know your opinion. What or how do you think we can, as a community, what do we need to do? And the second question is, although my checkbook isn't quite $30 or $40 million yet, how other than, I know there's some Israeli mutual funds that invest in tech stocks and stuff like that on the NASDAQ, how can we get involved in investing in Israeli companies?
I'm happy to. I'll give you an answer on how to invest. I leave Philadelphia to the Philadelphians. But in terms of there's a website called OurCrowd, OurCrowd, and you can go on and if you
Crowdfunding.
Yeah, and basically they bring Israeli companies. You can read about the company and you can decide to be part of a group of people funding it. And they have lots of cool companies there. I would warn anyone that. Early stage investing is a non-contact sport, and it's very you want definitely a portfolio effect, and any single investment. It's certainly not unusual to lose all of your investments. So I would warn anyone, but I think for an individual, my father wanted to invest in Israeli companies. That's where I sent him. I think he's doing okay.
Let me bring the Philadelphia perspective to that. There are a number of funds already established in Philadelphia who fundraise from time to time, and there are a number of funds that are looking to be established for the purpose of investing in Israel that can get funding. They don't have enough people interested in investing in them, and they can't get government funding for it. Government, I don't mean, I'm talking about this pension funds and the state of Pennsylvania pension funds, Philadelphia pension funds, are not investing in Israeli driven funds. But Boris's fund fundraises from time to time. There are other people who are looking to establish funds to invest in Israel, and there's just not enough investors in the Philadelphia region. So one thing that we could be doing is there's enough money, like you said, but not enough money going to vehicles to invest in Israel. Just like there is enough charitable money in the Philadelphia region, but it doesn't necessarily go to Jewish or Israeli causes.
Last question.
Hi, thanks again. Love your perspectives. My question is, if as a community, one of our goals is to bring more Israeli companies, more Israeli entrepreneurs to Philadelphia, has anyone discussed creating a space, specifically for Israeli entrepreneurs to come and incubate and accelerate? I know there's one in New York funded by maybe Gotham Partners or something like that. Has there been talk or ideas exchanged in that realm for Philadelphia?
Yeah. I don't want to monopolize things, but the answer is yes. There has been talk. We've actually talked to the city about dedicating some space. Again, funding has always been a problem. Space is not a problem. The funding of the space is a problem. We've been working to create an energy, a clean tech energy hub of Israeli companies in the Navy Yard, for example. But it always comes down to the bottom line. Who's going to fund that?
Thank you.
All right. I'll take one last question. That's it.
Sorry, Blake. I just had a quick question about taxes. In particular, Philadelphia is not considered a very business-friendly environment for those of us who own businesses in Philadelphia. Is that something that comes into play when these companies are looking at Philadelphia versus Akron or Salt Lake or wherever? The way we tax our businesses here?
No, I think
it's a minor consideration, very minor. It's really not. There are other things, or at least half a dozen, that are far more important. Access to capital is number one. Getting support in the community is number two. After that, everything sort of is much less important.
Thank you very much, everybody.